Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sky Webb and I'm here to talk about a true crime story that I cannot get off my mind. But before I get started, I just want to put out a little disclaimer that I mean no harm to any of the victims or the victims' families, and I wish everyone who was hurt within this story the utmost peace and solace, either in rest or in recovery. With that out of the way, happy True Crime Thursday. Welcome back to the channel, or just welcome. I hope everyone is having a good time while we're all grounded and in lockdown. Hopefully you're not too bored. If you are, I hope this can provide a little bit of entertainment for you. Today we're going to look into the Conrad Roy case, which is the assisted suicide case that involves Michelle Carter. I think it almost goes without saying that this case could potentially be triggering to some people if you've ever had trouble with suicidal thoughts or know anyone who's had trouble with suicidal thoughts. So just keep that in mind before you choose to watch, because it can be a little bit confronting. Conrad Henri Roy III was an 18-year-old boy from Massachusetts, born on the 12th of September 1995. He was a really clever kid. He came first in actually a lot of his classes, and he was really athletic as well. He really enjoyed baseball and he even ran track. He worked with his dad, his uncle and his grandpa, and he went on to get his captain's license after doing night classes, so he had a really good work ethic. From the outside looking in, he had almost a perfect life. He was athletic, he was intelligent, he had a good job, he had a good family. Overall, he just seemed really well put together. But as we all know by now, mental illness doesn't really give a fuck if you've built yourself a good life. It doesn't really give a fuck if you're good at sport or whether you're intelligent. It kind of doesn't discriminate, does it? From a young age, Conrad really struggled with anxiety, social anxiety to be specific, and as he grew up and got older, that sort of manifested into something even bigger and eventually turned into depression. He did see a lot of different therapists and psychologists as a child, but he kind of struggled to find the right one. No one seemed to be able to help him in the way that he needed help. He just couldn't find someone who he worked well with. When he was only 17 years old, he actually attempted suicide for the first time. And what he did, he took a lot of Panadol and he overdosed on paracetamol. Luckily though, as this was happening, as this was all going on, he was talking to a girl online and he told her, I've just taken all this Panadol, I think I'm overdosing or I'm going to overdose. And she panicked, did the right thing and called the police, which led to the ambulance taking him away and taking him to the hospital and saving his life. From there, he started to make a lot of videos where they were sort of like video confessionals almost, where he would talk about his feelings, he would talk about his mental illnesses and his struggles and sort of his outlook on life. And to me personally, it's almost eerie to watch these videos because I personally have social anxiety, probably not to the extent that he did necessarily, because it hasn't really manifested into depression, but it's eerie to me to watch these videos and be like, oh my god, that sounds like me. That sounds exactly like how I've described it. I don't make videos about it, but I'm a writer. I definitely have written about it, and I'm like, wow, that's creepy almost to see how similar we've described it. And I think that's a really good thing to just point out, that no matter how isolated you feel and how alone you feel and how much you think something is so personal to you, don't get me wrong, it is personal, but you're not the only person struggling with it. You need to reach out and find these people who are in the same boat as you are, because you guys can help each other, you know what I mean? And I think that's also a really good point about dating, especially when you're 17, 18 years old or even younger. I think a lot of people who struggle with these sort of mental illnesses and do feel so alone, they will try and date anyone who's interested, because it's like someone that you can share this with, someone you can get support from, but you don't necessarily pick people who are actually good for you. You just pick someone to be there, you know what I mean? And I think that's definitely the case for Conrad, where he just wanted someone and it wasn't the right person. Conrad met a girl called Michelle Carter in Florida while they were both visiting family members, but they happened to actually live only an hour apart in Massachusetts. Michelle struggled with mental illness as well. She struggled with eating disorders, which is fairly different from social anxiety as far as the struggles that you face along with those mental illnesses, but Conrad enjoyed speaking to her about it because it was like someone else was going through such a hard time the same way he was going through such a hard time, and they bonded over being able to talk about that. She also saw a number of different counselors and therapists. None of them were able to help her either, and she struggled pretty badly with self-harm, which is another thing that they bonded over. They started to develop a pretty intense relationship, although they had only met a handful of times throughout their entire lives. Majority of the relationship was just online and over social media and over the phone, but it was enough for them to feel really, really strongly about one another. They were both really, really deep. Like, they both talked about really dark topics, about their feelings, about their outlook on the world, about mental illnesses and eating disorders and self-harm and all these horrible, horrible things that you can't just have those type of conversations with regular people on a regular basis. Like, it's hard to be able to talk about those things when other people are like, oh my god, that's horrible, I don't want to talk about that, let's be happy, let's be positive. There's not many people who you're able to have those kind of conversations with, so if that's something you're struggling with, of course you're gonna love when you can talk about it openly and there's no judgment and there's no like, that's weird. Like, they really bonded over being so heavy together. Conrad felt as though Michelle helped him a lot, especially with all of his struggles. She actually talked him like down off the ledge, so to speak, with suicidal thoughts. There was a lot of times where he had wanted to attempt to kill himself, and she talked him down from that. She stopped him from doing it, and she told him, you have so much to live for, you have people who love you, you have, like, you know, you have a whole future ahead of you. And she was able to like bring him back down to earth instead of going through with it. That being said though, it did become very well established between the two that one day Conrad would kill himself. That's how he would die, that's how he would go, that's how his life would go, and both of them knew that. There was no debating it. Like, they just both knew one day he would kill himself, or at least that's what they had decided. He spent a fair amount of time discussing his own death and researching his own death, and he would send her photos of guns and nooses and other like killing instruments. And he even suggested that maybe they kill themselves together one day and it would be like Romeo and Juliet, and Michelle was like, oh, that's so sweet, but I don't want to die. And so there was a lot of back and forth of like, how should I do it, when should I do it? But at the end of the day, it was always decided that he would do it. And eventually he came up with a plan, and he decided which method he would do it in, and that was that. On the 14th of July 2014, Conrad went out with his mum and his sisters, and they spent the day together. They hung out, they went to the beach, they went to the park and got ice cream, and they just had like a lovely day together. They all said that Conrad was really happy, he was really positive, he seemed to be doing better than he had for years. He just seemed to be in a really good place. He didn't seem to have anything weighing him down. And the only thing they really noticed was that like he was on his phone all the time, texting, and they didn't know who he was texting, but they sort of summed it up to like, oh, he's a teenager, it's not really our business who he's texting, and left it at that. I just want to quickly point out that a lot of the time when people have made the decision that they're going to kill themselves, it can make them seem so much better than they were, because when you know all of your problems are like coming to an end and all of your struggles are about to be over, like it lifts a massive weight off of you. So of course you're gonna seem happier and lighter and more positive, because as far as that person is concerned, like they don't have problems anymore, because it's all gonna be over. So just keep that in mind. If someone suddenly seems like they're doing so much better, just keep an eye out for them and make sure they really are doing so much better and it's not because of something like this. That night he told his mum that he was going to go see a friend, and he said goodbye and then he drove off. and that was the last time he would ever drive away from the house. The next morning he still wasn't home, and so his mum immediately called the police. She thought it was bizarre, like he never did this, he never just like stayed out, that wasn't like him at all, they didn't have any messages from him. And so she called the police and they started to look for him, and it wasn't long before an officer found his truck, his car, parked in an empty parking lot, and found him inside the front seat, and he had died. He had killed himself by carbon monoxide poisoning. His family was devastated, as can be expected. I think anybody would be. And so they spent a lot of time in his room, and that's where they found all these suicide notes. He had left suicide notes for all of his immediate family, and then there was one note left for someone called Michelle, and the family didn't know who the fuck Michelle was. So they read the note, and it basically said, thank you for all your help, thank you for being there for me, thank you for letting me open up to you, like thank you for helping me throughout this struggle, essentially. And so the family immediately felt like gratitude to this Michelle person for potentially saving him for all of the years up until now. Like they were really happy that he had someone to open up to and had someone to like be there for him, you know what I mean? From there, Michelle actually reached out to the family and she started to build bonds with the entire family. Like she was friends with the sisters, she was friends with the mum, and because they were all mourning the same person, it was really easy for them to bond over that, bond over missing him and bond over loving him and wishing he was still here. Michelle would apologize to the family for not being able to save him, and she would blame herself and say, it's all my fault, I should have done more, I was his girlfriend, I should have saved him. And they were like, of course not, like it's not your fault, there's nothing you could do. If you couldn't save him, we couldn't save, like no one could save him, it's not your fault. And they felt sorry for her. She was playing like this sorrow-filled widow almost, and it was just horrible. She asked his family if she could have a look around his room and if she could take one or two of his possessions to take home as like a memory of him, which is super normal to do with a passed away loved one. Granted, you spent physical time with that loved one, whereas she hadn't. So like if my like family member died and I always spent time with them while they wore a certain jumper, or like I had gifted them something and then I wanted to take that back to, like, you know what I mean, like a possession that actually has like memories in it, where she didn't have any memories because she only met him a handful of times and like there was just nothing like that. So it seemed a little bit extra for her to want to take his stuff. Like she should have left that for the family maybe, because they would have had like sentimental value. She didn't. On top of that, she asked the family if she could have some of his ashes, which is a huge ask. And then she set up a whole charity event, a baseball charity event in Conrad's name, in his memory, and didn't even consult the family, didn't even tell them, didn't even ask them their opinion on it, just went ahead and did it. And then she became like a massive spokesperson for anti-suicide and anti-bullying, and she was very active on social media, and she would put on social media like a lot that I feel so bad, I couldn't save him, I couldn't save his life, but I want to save as many lives as I can. And she was just very outspoken about the whole anti-suicide thing, and people just ate that shit right up. Like she was this poor young girl whose boyfriend had killed himself, and she blamed herself, and it was horrible. Everyone felt sorry for her. She was a heartbroken girlfriend, and like she was right in the middle of this huge tragedy, and people just felt so horrible for her. Then one of the detectives who were involved in like shutting down the case, which up until that point had been very cut and dry, like a depressed teenager killed himself in his car, like that's that. This detective was a little bit of a curious cat, and he decided to have a squiz through Conrad's phone, and the case, which was just an obvious suicide, took a turn, and these text messages showed that maybe Michelle wasn't as anti-suicide as she might have portrayed. I'm gonna read some of the texts that were exchanged, and you can tell me how anti-suicide you think Michelle Carter really was. So are you sure you don't want to kill yourself tonight? What do you mean, am I sure? Like, are you definitely not going to do it tonight? I don't know yet. I'll let you know. Because I'll stay up with you if you want to do it tonight. Another day wouldn't hurt. You can't just keep pushing it off though. That's all you keep doing. You're gonna have to prove me wrong because I just don't think you really want this. You just keep pushing it off to another night and say you'll do it, but you never do. But I bet you're gonna be like, oh, it didn't work because I didn't tape the tube right or something like that. I bet you're gonna say an excuse like that. Do you have the generator? Not yet, lol. Well, when are you getting it? Do not be bullshitting me and saying you're gonna do this and then purposely get caught. I think your parents know you're in a really bad place. I'm not saying they want you to do it, but I honestly feel like they can accept it. They know there's nothing they can do. They've tried helping. Everyone's tried. But there's a point that comes where there isn't anything anyone can do to save you. Not even yourself. And you've hit that point, and I think your parents know you've hit that point. You said your mum saw a suicide thing on your computer, and she didn't say anything. I think she knows it's on your mind, and she's prepared for it. Everyone will be sad for a while, but they will get over it and move on. They won't be in depression. I won't let that happen. They know how sad you are, and they know that you're doing this to be happy, and I think they will understand and accept it. They'll always carry you in their hearts. So I guess you aren't gonna do it then? All that for nothing? I'm just confused, like you were so ready and determined. I am gonna eventually. I really don't know what I'm waiting for, but I have everything lined up. No, you're not, Conrad. Last night was it. You keep pushing it off, and you say you'll do it, but you never do. It's always gonna be that way if you don't take action. You're just making it harder on yourself by pushing it off. You just have to do it. Do you want to do it now? Is it too late? I don't know. It's already light outside. I'm gonna go back to sleep. Love you. I'll text you tomorrow. No, it's probably the best time now because everyone's sleeping. Just go somewhere in your truck, and no one's really out right now because it's an awkward time. And you can say you'll do it tomorrow, but you probably won't. Yeah, it'll work. If you emit 3200 ppm of it for 5 or 10 minutes, you will die within a half hour. You lose consciousness with no pain. You just fall asleep and die. You can also just take a hose and run that from the exhaust pipe to the rear window in your car and seal it with duct tape and shirts so it can't escape. You will die within like 20 or 30 minutes, all pain-free. You just need to do it, Conrad, or I'm gonna get you help. You can't keep doing this every day. Okay, I'm gonna do it today. Do you promise? I promise, babe. I have to now. Like right now? Where do I go? With a fucking sad face. Where do I go with a sad face? It's so sad. And you can't break a promise. And just go in a quiet parking lot or something. Those texts are a little bit all over the place, but I just read the most important or the most shocking ones that go to show like how involved Michelle was in his decision making, in his thought process when he decided to do what he did. Because of these texts, Michelle had to go to court and she was charged with involuntary manslaughter. This raised a lot of questions when it comes to free speech. Obviously, her getting charged for this is getting charged for speech because she didn't hand him a gun per se, but she did everything in her power, within her power of speech, to influence him and manipulate him into killing himself. A lot of people were bothered by the fact that she was charged with anything because being charged with speech is essentially saying like you don't have free speech, because obviously free speech means you can say whatever the fuck you want, and now she's being charged for saying whatever the fuck she wanted. So a lot of people were sort of asking, well, where do we draw the line? Now, I'm Australian. We don't have free speech. So I feel like there's a difference between saying, I don't like you, go fuck yourself, go kill yourself, versus saying, you should kill yourself, it's the right thing to do, your family, like they accept it, everyone accepts it, everyone believes that you should kill yourself, here's the ways to kill yourself, here's different methods you can try, this is when you should do it, this is where you should do it. Like, you're literally planning out a suicide for somebody else. I don't feel like that should be protected under free speech, because that's That's a lot. And you're taking advantage of someone who's mentally ill and not in their right mind. Like, I feel like that's maybe where you draw the line. Like that, you've crossed the line. That's the line, okay? But if you're American, I would love to hear what you think about that, because I don't know, I guess never having free speech, I'm like, you can't fucking do that, but you guys might feel differently. Obviously, on the other hand, people are saying, well, she manipulated him, she influenced him, he wasn't in his right mind, he couldn't defend himself appropriately, nobody was there to defend himself. It's like almost like, I'm not saying that he had the mentality of a child, but it almost feels like persuading a child to do something wrong. Obviously, morally, that's wrong. I don't know if legally that's wrong, but it probably should be. I don't know. I'm getting tangled up. And obviously, on top of that, she didn't report him. She didn't try and get him help, which is failure to report a crime, because I don't know in that state or in America at all, to be honest. I need to look into it, whether or not it's illegal to kill yourself, but I know here it was at one point. Again, not sure if it still is currently, but at one point it was illegal to kill yourself, so not informing someone that they're gonna kill themselves surely would be like not reporting a crime, but I don't know. Regardless, she was charged. The biggest turning point in the case where people sort of collectively agreed that she had crossed a line is when they realized that Conrad had actually gotten out of the car. He had gotten out of the car after he felt the carbon monoxide like taking effect. He felt the poisoning starting to have an effect on his body, and he was scared. He freaked out. He didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't think that it was the right thing to do, and he was just genuinely scared of what was happening. So he got out of the car and he called Michelle, and that's when Michelle talked him into getting back into the fucking car. She told him that it was the right thing to do, and this is something that she admitted to a friend later on, that she did talk him into getting back into the car, which is just heartbreaking, and would have been heartbreaking for his family to know that he was scared in his like final moments, and he wanted out. He didn't want to do it anymore, and she influenced him and manipulated him to get back inside the fucking car. Either way, Michelle Carter was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter on the 16th of June 2017, and she was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. But on the 6th of February 2019, that sentence was lowered to only 15 months. She then started her sentence on the 11th of February 2019, and just this year, 2020, January 23rd, she was released early for good behavior. And to get such like a light sentence is off its fucking head. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this video. I really want to know what you think about Michelle and the whole free speech thing. Do you think that morally what she did was right or wrong, and legally what she did was right or wrong? Do you believe that that was like should have been covered under free speech, or do you think that she deserved to go to prison for that? I also want to know whether you think she did it for attention, or whether you think there was like a deeper reasoning behind what she did. Let me know in the comments down below, or you can head over to my Facebook, which is skyweb with 3 B's, and let me know there. I would love to hear your opinions. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you feel like it. I would really appreciate it, and be sure to subscribe so that you can see all my new videos. I post every single Thursday all about true crime, and I would love to have you be a part of it. Make sure you guys are being safe out there. Don't trust people called Michelle. And most importantly, don't tell people to kill themselves. Make sure you guys are being safe out there. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!